Since I became governor, Texas has passed more significant Second Amendment protections.
Republican presidential nominee appeared in Dallas for the National Rifle Association's annual convention on Saturday.
Ended the three-day convention, including former President Donald Trump and Governor Greg Abbott.
And he delivered remarks while accepting the NRA's endorsement.
And Joe Biden took office and he signed so many executive orders, he decimated that secure border.
Both giving speeches in which they vowed to continue protecting Second Amendment rights.
They vowed to continue protecting Second Amendment rights.
NRA Annual Convention. At the National Rifle Association's annual convention, Donald Trump and Governor Greg Abbott encouraged the thousands gathered to vote for Trump in the 2024 presidential election as a way to ensure their Second Amendment rights. The NRA has stood with me from the very beginning, and with your vote, I'll stand strong for your rights and liberties, Trump said. I heard it a few weeks ago that if gun owners voted, we would stamp them at levels that nobody's ever seen before. I think you're a rebellious bunch, but let's be rebellious and vote this time.
Since I became governor, Texas has passed more significant Second Amendment protections.
Republican presidential nominee appeared in Dallas for the National Rifle Association's annual convention on Saturday.
Ended the three-day convention, including former President Donald Trump and Governor Greg Abbott.
And he delivered remarks while accepting the NRA's endorsement.
Trump and Abbott spoke to a room packed with NRA members, some of which sported supportive attire from the standard fare red caps to a dress covered with photos of the former president. During the convention, the NRA released its endorsement for the 45th president, and the Trump political campaign announced the launch for the Gun Owners for Trump coalition.
And Joe Biden took office and he signed so many executive orders, he decimated that secure border.
President Donald Trump and Governor Greg Abbott addressed thousands of people at the NRA's convention in Dallas today.
Both giving speeches in which they vowed to continue protecting Second Amendment rights.
They vowed to continue protecting Second Amendment rights.
Now more than ever, we must fight to protect our Second Amendment rights.
Singing praises. Abbott touted his track record on gun rights by pointing to Texas laws passed last year, such as House Bill 3137, which prohibits local governments from requiring firearm owners to buy liability insurance. To energetic applause, he said the law ensured people would not be forced to pay to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Abbott also described the state's successful crackdown on the recent pro-Palestinian protests on university campuses, in which protesters are demanding the schools divest from companies tied to Israel or weapons manufacturing amidst the Israel-Hamas war. When they tried to pull that stunt in Texas, our Department of Public Safety cleared the area, arrested the protesters, and put them in jail, Abbott said. Unlike some of these radical leftist universities like Columbia, UCLA, and far too many others, in Texas, we don't tolerate paid protesters who try to hijack our college campuses. Almost to the day, the NRA convention takes place 2 years after the Uvalde school mass incident where an 18-year-old went off the rail on an elementary school with a legally purchased rifle. The perpetrator claimed the lives of 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers with an AR-15 style rifle. During the 2023 legislative session, Uvalde families unsuccessfully pressed Texas lawmakers to pass a raise the age law, which would have upped the minimum age for buying semi-auto weaponry from 18 to 21. Donald Trump and Texas Republicans made the gun epidemic worse, especially in our state, where we've seen 9 mass incidents in just the last 15 years, said in a statement by Gilberto Hinojosa, the Texas Democratic Party chair. Trump fires away at Biden. Former President Trump revisited many familiar subjects and made several jabs at President Joe Biden, repeating pejorative nicknames for Biden several times. He also made a direct appeal to his NRA audience. Trump told the crowd that the Second Amendment is under siege. Let there be no doubt the survival of the Second Amendment is on the ballot, Trump said. They're coming for your guns. Governor Greg Abbott touted pro-gun rights legislation that has been passed on his watch, as well as his opposition to protests on college campuses. Another thing we don't tolerate in Texas, that is Joe Biden's open border policy, Abbott said. And he used his time speaking to the NRA convention to promote Trump's candidacy. Let's be clear about this. Joe Biden deserves to be fired. Under his feckless leadership, we have war in Europe, Israel is under attack, China is emboldened, and inflation is destroying the middle class in America, he said. Abbott's staunch response to Joe Biden. Governor Greg Abbott issued a statement following the new proposals announced by President Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security to address the historic levels of illegal immigrants entering our country at the southern border. President Biden inherited the most secure border with the lowest illegal immigration since last century. With the stroke of a pen, he proudly ended those secure border policies and opened the border to more than 11 million illegal immigrants from more than 150 different countries, including known terrorists, slayers, and rapists. Now, desperately grasping to salvage his failed presidency, President Biden attempts the most minimal action possible, hoping to mask the crisis he created. Abbott further added, to be clear, President Biden's feckless proposals, which he could have done years ago, do nothing to slow down the record-breaking illegal immigration. Most notably, President Biden sidesteps actually enforcing the laws already enacted by Congress. President Biden is not just authorized, he's required to deny illegal entry, detain illegal immigrants, and build border barriers. Maybe worse, President Biden attacks Texas for simply doing what Congress compelled him to do.
Governors across the United States are speaking up in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's action being taken along the border.
This after the state seized control of the park to arrest migrants and a Supreme Court ruling stating those federal agents can cut.
One of the reasons why Governor Abbott says he's not backing down here in this fight.
The Biden administration would put that time into securing the border as opposed to stopping Texas.
Texas is building a border wall, installing hundreds of miles of razor wire and buoy barriers, and deploying thousands of Texas National Guard soldiers and Department of Public Safety troopers. Our efforts have led to a substantial decline in illegal immigration into Texas, while it remains on the rise in other border states. Operation Lone Star is working, and President Biden would do well to follow our lead or get out of our way, Abbott touted. Texas began rolling out what was set to become a new floating barrier on the Rio Grande in the latest escalation of Republican Governor Greg Abbott's multi-billion-dollar effort to secure the U.S. border with Mexico, which already has included busing migrants to liberal states and authorizing the National Guard to make arrests. But even before the huge orange buoys were unloaded from the trailers that hauled them to the border city of Eagle Pass, there were concerns over this part of Abbott's unprecedented challenge to the federal government's authority over immigration enforcement.
Biden administration is trying to stop Texas from denying illegal entry into the country.
When Democrats have to face up to the reality of what Texas has to deal with every single day, they adopt the same approach that Texas has.
But because Joe Biden and the Democrats refuse to secure the border, Texas has and we will.
As for Senate Bill 4, if a person is caught entering the state away from the legal port of entry, he or she would be charged.
Migrant advocates voiced concerns about drowning risks, and environmentalists questioned the impact on the river. Dozens of the large spherical buoys were stacked on the beds of 4 tractor trailers in a grassy city park near the river. Setting up the barriers could take up to 2 weeks, according to Lieutenant Chris Olivares, a spokesman for the Texas Department of Public Safety, which was overseeing the project. Once installed, the above-river parts of the system and the webbing they're connected with will cover 1,000 feet or 305 meters of the middle of the Rio Grande, with anchors in the riverbed. Eagle Pass is part of a Border Patrol sector that has seen the second highest number of migrant crossings this fiscal year, with about 270,000 encounters, though that's lower than what it was at this time last year. The crossing dynamics shifted in May after the Biden administration stopped implementing Title 42, a pandemic-era public health safety that turned many asylum seekers back to Mexico. New rules allowed people to seek asylum through a government application and set up appointments at the ports of entry, though the maximum allowed in per day is set at 1,450. The Texas governor's policies target the many who are frustrated with the cap and cross illegally through the river. Earlier iterations of Abbott's border mission have included installing miles of razor wire at popular crossing points on the river and creating state checkpoints beyond federal stops to inspect incoming commercial traffic. We always look to employ whatever strategies will be effective in securing the border, Abbott said in a previous press conference to introduce the boy strategy. But the state hasn't said what tests or studies have been done to determine risks posed to people who try to get around the barrier or environmental impacts.
The border poses a threat to national security. Biden's deliberate inaction.
Biden's Border Patrol used wire cutters to cut it open it up, and thousands came in.
The Border Patrol recently warned to take extreme caution when it learned that
repel migrants as well as bus and fly migrants to New York, Chicago, and other places like that.
Cut that razor wire. The United States Supreme Court has hereforth ruled that Border Patrol agents can go ahead with cutting a razor wire fence that Texas had put on its border with Mexico to stop illegal migrants and asylum seekers from entering the country. The 5-4 ruling was a sign of victory for President Joe Biden as it came in the midst of an ongoing legal battle that resulted in a federal appeals court forcing agents to stop cutting the fence last month. The Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, has for 2 years sought to stop migrants and asylum seekers from as much as entering the U.S., unspooling razor wire that extends over 46 kilometers of its border with Mexico along the banks of the Rio Grande River and has left people injured and in worn-out shape. He is now touting the right to self-defense from a migrant invasion at the southern border as the state fights a multi-pronged battle versus the Biden administration. Abbott dovetailed that message with his ongoing criticism of Democratic President Joe Biden's border and immigration policies, and that set the stage for his words of praise for Trump as the 2024 campaign heats up, heading toward the November 5th election. Donald Trump is the antidote to Joe Biden, Abbott told the cheering delegates. In the history of America, no president has fought harder to protect our Second Amendment rights. And that's all for this video, folks. See you next time, and bye for now.